Think about this for a second. On December 14th, 1972, a man named Eugene Cernan took the last step of the moon, leaving humanity's final footprint there for what would become an entire lifetime. He famously said he hoped it wouldn't be the last, yet for more than half a century it was. An entire generation was born, grew up, and had kids of their own, all while we stayed right here on Earth. So, with the new Artemis program getting ready to finally send people back, first on a flyby and then to land, there's this Nation question just hanging in the air. Why? Why did we wait half a century? Did we lose the tech? Did we just stop dreaming big? Or was something else going on, keeping us stuck here? The answer isn't some crazy conspiracy theory. It's a wild story of money, politics, and what happens after you win the most incredible race in human history. To figure out the 50-year pause, we have to go back to why Apollo even happened. And it wasn't just for the science. The Apollo program was a geopolitical machine born out of the Cold War. The main goal was super clear and simple: beat the Soviet Union to the moon. And the cost was just staggering. Between 1960 and 1973, the US spent over $28 billion on Apollo, which in today's money is somewhere between a jaw-dropping amount of $280 to $338 billion. At its absolute peak in the mid-1960s, NASA's budget made up a whopping 4.4% of the entire federal budget. It was basically like fighting a war, with over 400,000 people working on it, all focused on this one epic goal. But then, once Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin planted that flag in 1969, the political reason for all of it just evaporated. Oof. The race was won. As more missions went up, people at home started to lose interest. Politicians, now facing the ballooning costs of the Vietnam War and ambitious new social projects, saw NASA's giant budget as the perfect place to make cuts. Spending on Lyndon Johnson's Great Society initiatives, which created programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Head Start soared. Between 1964 and 1967 alone, federal spending on health and education tripled. Consequently, NASA's budget was slashed, falling from its 4.4% peak to just 1% of the federal budget by the early 1970s. NASA had actually planned to go all the way to Apollo 20, but in 1970, with the main goal checked off and the money drying up, Apollo 18, 19, and 20 were just cancelled. The political drive was gone, and so was the blank check that got us to the moon. With the moon suddenly off the table, NASA's focus didn't just get smaller, it did a complete 180 degrees. The agency turned from deep space right back to our own backyard. Low Earth orbit. This led to two of the most iconic projects we know today, the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station, ISS. The Space Shuttle was this amazing idea for a reusable space truck, something that would make getting to space feel routine and affordable. And it was a technological marvel, but it was also a huge compromise. Instead of exploring the solar system, we were building a highway just above our own atmosphere. For 30 years, the shuttle was American spaceflight. But here's the thing. It was physically incapable of leaving Earth's orbit. It kept our astronauts close to home. The shuttle's big long-term job became building the International Space Station, an incredible piece of engineering and a huge win for international teamwork. The ISS has been amazing for science, and it's taught us so much about how to live in space for long periods. But it also ate up most of NASA's budget and attention for decades. We were getting really good at living in space, but we had given up on exploring it. Those grand voyages were replaced by a permanent home just 250 miles up. Okay, so it's not that NASA never tried to go back after 1970s. In 2004, under President George Bush, it felt like the dream was back on. The agency announced the Constellation program. The goal was big: get back to the moon by 2020 and use it as a launchpad to get to Mars. It felt like the spirit of Apollo was finally back. They even started designing cool new gear, the Ares 1 rocket for the crew, the giant Ares 5 for cargo, and the Orion capsule. But the whole thing was in trouble pretty much from the start. It was constantly underfunded and falling behind schedule, which made the costs just balloon. In 2009, a review committee basically said the program was on a path that just wasn't going to work. When President Barack Obama came into office, his team looked it over, and in 2010, they cancelled it, calling it over budget, behind schedule, and lacking in innovation. The money and the political will just weren't there to sustain it. Once again, the dream of going back to the moon was put back on the shelf. But hang on, you might be wondering, why was this so hard? We already did it, right? Why not just dust off the old blueprints for the Saturn V, the last rocket that went to the moon, and build another one? Yeah, that's a great question. The reality is way more complicated. First, the blueprints for the Saturn V were never lost, which is a popular rumor. They're safely stored on microfilm, right? No. The real problem is that the entire industrial world that built the Saturn V just vanished. That rocket was a mosaic of millions of parts from thousands of different companies, and a lot of those companies either don't exist anymore or don't make those parts. The specialized tools, the giant machines, even the launch pads were either thrown away or rebuilt for the space shuttle. But here's the most important part. The people who knew how to build it were gone. All of the incredibly complex hand-on knowledge, the institutional memory of how to put the beast together and fix it when something went wrong had retired or passed away. Trying to build a Saturn V today wouldn't be like restarting an assembly line. It would be more like an archaeological project. It would be insanely expensive and honestly pretty inefficient compared to the tech we have now. NASA had to start over, designing a whole new generation of rockets and spacecraft, the Space Launch System, SLS, and Orion, from the ground up. And that's a process that has taken over a decade and billions of dollars. So what changed? Why now? The big push for the Artemis program is happening because a bunch of new things are coming together that kind of mirror the past, but with a totally different vision for the future. A Brobdingnagian driver is, weirdly enough, another space race. This time, it's with China. China has become a major space power with a really deliberate and fast-moving moon program. They have landed robots, brought back moon rocks, and they have a public goal of landing their astronauts, or they call them taikinauts, on a surface by 2030. This has lit a new fire under the United States, not just to plant a flag, but to build a strategic presence there. But here's what's so different this time, and this is so cool. Artemis isn't just a government show. It relies heavily on partnerships with commercial companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin. Guess by who? By Elon and Jeff, to develop the human landers. This new public-private model is meant to drive the costs down and push innovation forward. This is Brobdingnagian if it works. The ambition for Artemis is off the charts, and its story is being written as we speak. So I'm curious, what do you think about this new era of space exploration? Do you think this new team-up model with private companies is the right way to go? Let us know in the comments below. So that 50-year gap wasn't a mistake. It was a consequence of victory. But now, we have a new reason to go back, and a new plan called Artemis. It's a series of increasingly complex missions designed to build permanent human presence on the moon and prepare us for Mars. Here are the 5 key pillars of that plan. First, Artemis 1. This was the successful uncrewed test flight of the new space launch system rocket and Orion capsule, which flew over the moon in 2022 to prove the hardware worked. This is the first crewed mission, which will send 4 astronauts on a flyby around the moon, testing Orion's life support systems and taking humans further into space than ever before. Third, Artemis 3. This mission will be a crewed demonstration in low Earth orbit, where astronauts will dock with one of the new commercial lunar landers to test out the crucial systems needed for a landing. Fourth, Artemis 4. This is the big one. The first human moon landing in over 50 years. 4 astronauts will fly to the moon, and 2 will descend to the lunar South Pole. a region humans have never visited. This mission will also begin delivering parts for the Gateway, and the fifth, the Gateway and beyond. The Gateway is a planned small space station in lunar orbit that will act as a multi-purpose outpost. Astronauts will travel to it before heading down to the lunar surface. Following Artemis 4, future missions will aim to establish a permanent lunar base, setting the stage for the next giant step, sending the first humans to Mars.